Today's episode of Armchair Ninja Podcast is brought to you by Atomic Climbing Holds. You've seen Atomic's work in some of the most iconic obstacles on American Ninja Warrior, including Cannonball Alley, Area 51's UFOs, and Stage 3's infamous hang climb.
You're listening to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Here is your host, Rich.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. My name is Rich, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Bijan. What's up, Bijan?
What's up, Rich? What's up, everybody? Oh, man, I'm so ready. Team Ninja Warrior is finally here. Let's do it, man.
Oh, God, it's been months of preparation. It's finally here. I'm excited. I can't wait to talk about it. I've been dying to talk about it. So,
man, for real. Like, we've been talking about this forever, and it's finally here. I was just so happy to finally, just watch it in general. And, yeah, it definitely lived up to the hype.
Yeah, no worries about that. It was so exciting. So, let's run through it. We're going to go through it in detail. We'll talk about all the different runs that we saw, the results. Then we're going to go through our National Ninja League, of course, and Video of the Week, and Fan of the Week. So let's get started. So right off the bat, let's kind of run down the course and what we saw. So and the format. So we had 4 teams, and so it's going to start off with match number 1 between 2 teams, and the winner from that match will play the loser from the second match. So it's kind of a strange format I've never seen before, almost like a round robin, but a little bit different because the second round is the elimination. So the first round really doesn't matter except giving you a better chance at getting a weaker opponent, I guess, for the second one.
Yeah, I guess it's just about placement, if anything, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, you could destroy in the first round, but if you lost out in the second, you're done. Just kind of funny that it could work out that way. Didn't happen to this time, but we might see that.
Yeah, you have to imagine it's going to happen at some point. Man, yeah, I'm going to have to see how it plays out because for me, it was kind of hit or miss. I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this. It'd be nicer, like as we said before, like I don't know if we touch it, but there's a point system involved with the rounds, with the placement between the 3 people competing against each other, or the 3 rounds. And it would be nice if the winner for one particular, I guess, matchup between the teams would get a slight boost in terms of points over the other team. Whereas, kind of like the loser team, it's now or never in a way. But it's kind of like equal footing in the first one, where it's really the second round where it only really matters, right?
Yeah, almost in a way, it's almost like a practice round.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, kind of it's like just testing the core, seeing how you feel about it. But, it is about placement. So I guess in some ways it's like the 2 tougher teams aren't competing against each other until the finals. But as we saw with this race, it's almost like all teams are very, very close to each other. It's not like there's a supremely dominant team against a very much vastly insuperior team in a way.
Yeah, we had some real surprises, and I actually changed how I feel about the show and who's going to have a good chance versus each other. So,
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that pick, man?
I still, you know what? I'm going to defend that pick. I think they did awesome. So I'm gonna we'll go through here.
Yeah, we'll go through. But yeah, I got to give it. That was still a good team. You had a good pick, man.
So we had a new sideline reporter too, Alex Curry, who we didn't get to see very much. She did a couple of quick interviews, but the format of the whole show was kind of tight. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have a lot of fluff to it. It was a lot of very quick interviews, very quick introductions.
Yeah, that was the number one thing, or the main point that I came out of in terms of overall the show, in terms of improvement taken from American Ninja Warrior, is that they really, I feel like they listened to feedback from American Ninja Warrior, and they shortened out the montages or vignettes in terms of personal profiles, and it was a lot more compact, a lot more narrow, and a lot more focused, and I really enjoyed it. The vignettes were a lot more entertaining and enjoyable because it wasn't so heavy-handed with the drama and the fluff, as you said, and it was a lot more just straightforward. This is who I am. This is my accomplishments, and let's do this. With that said, these are people, for the most part, these are a lot of people we've already seen before, so that might play part in it. I still think we're going to get a lot of the longer, heavy-handed vignettes on American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to change the format of that. But we also have the benefit of, we've been researching all these people. We were pretty familiar with them because we've been doing analysis on them for the last 6 weeks. So that helps them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, for the course itself, they had 6 obstacles. So in the first heats, the first matches, they had 6 obstacles complete. That is the Sonic Swing. That's basically like... almost like the quintuple steps, but they're straightened out into a rope swing, and then they do the log grip, which I think everybody's probably familiar with. That's when they grip around the log, which slides down on these rails and drops twice, into a swing jump, which is basically a rope swing into a cargo net, onto the dancing stones, which seem to be a little bit bigger that we've seen in the past, or at least in a lot of cases. They had to step across with one shared one in the middle that can basically make it hard for one person to get past another, and possible collisions along the way. Into the pole grasper, which was the suspended poles that they had to work across, but they were loose at the bottom. In the past, we've seen them kind of go straight down and be rigid. These kind of floated a bit, and into like a dual warped wall, where they both had a warped wall to get up to hit the buzzer. So overall, I liked the course. I thought it was actually pretty good and not as upper body intensive as we thought. I don't know, just seeing it play out didn't seem to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was so happy that it was a lot more diversified. I think in the previews when we covered it, we were just seeing a whole lot more of the upper body intensive parts of the course, but they didn't really highlight enough of the transition obstacles. But definitely when we saw this course, it was a lot more laid out and diversified with the transition obstacles, the balance cardio base obstacles, and big shout out to the dancing stones. I loved that particular implement. It was such a ninja killer. We'll talk about it later, but small little, I guess, obstacles like that really made a difference in the show when you're racing and you're almost overlooking a particular obstacle. And it really made an impact. Obviously, the upper body intensive obstacles played a part in terms of slowing people down, but it was really the smaller transition obstacles that really played a big part in the show. And I really love to see it.
Okay, so just as a reminder, the first 2 matches will be worth 1 point, and then the third heat, which is generally between the captains of the team, is worth 2 points. So, right up, matchup number 1, it's Storm Team versus the Average Jo Jos. And the first competitors we get to see are Rob Moravsky with his new haircut and Jimmy Bogle Jr. So they take off pretty equal, actually, to the swing jump, and then Rob started to get held up there, and then he starts racing to catch up, and he falls on the dancing stones. Were you surprised, Bijan? I know we kind of gave Rob kind of a hit or miss review when we had done it previously.
Yeah, it didn't really surprise me, and I think the main aspect to take from this first run is that Rob Moravsky, he's a great athlete, obviously has a great build and everything, is really in shape, but he lacks a certain amount of technique when it comes to particular obstacles. And I think mentally he was a little nervous. I think it just got to him. He does a little better later on, but I think from this first run, you really saw the difference in technique. When you saw Jimmy Bogle Jr. run the course, he was hitting obstacles just a little bit more focused and better. When you saw Rob Moravsky, like his technique on the swing and everything, he had to readjust himself so much, and then all the other obstacles he was hitting, you just saw a certain lack of technique when hitting them, which you didn't see with Jimmy Bogle Jr. and a lot of the other athletes when hitting these particular obstacles. I think it was just a lack of experience and other things, even when he's experienced, so to speak.
Yeah. So it's an okay start. And then we ended up with round 2. That was Caitlin Shuckwit versus Mary Beth Wong. Mary Beth started to pull away in the swing jump. Shucks entered the pole grasper shortly after her. And that's when Akbar calls out, "Work the poles, girl."
Oh, man. The quote was, "Shucks, work the pole." And I was just, sometimes Akbar, man, sometimes I just cringe. Like, sometimes it can be really entertaining, but sometimes he has these quotes where I'm just like, dude, come on, man. That was definitely one of them. I don't know how people felt about it, but I cringed. I was like, I can't believe they left that in there in the in the editing, but whatever works for him. Yeah, Shucks, she was good, but she just wasn't on par in terms of the athleticism of Mary Beth Wong. And I think Shucks would do better when it's a more paced run, like American Ninja Warrior. I think when it comes to a race, she's just not going to be able to match the speed of a lot of the female athletes.
Yeah, I think she kind of got the short end of the straw, though. I mean, really, she got some pretty tough competition. I mean, there's probably lots of tough ones out there, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like these teams were stacked, but oh my God, really? When we went through the teams, there's so many good. It is kind of an all-star edition, so.
Yeah, I mean, if she was just competing by herself, she'd do great, But when she's matched up against such heavy competition, it's really hard to, I guess, show off her skills. I guess the same would go for Rob Moravsky and other people. They're good on their own, but when competing against the top-notch athletes, they show a lack of experience and precision.
Okay. Actually, I just realized we didn't finish that off. So Shucks ended up falling off on the pole grasper trying to catch up. So at this point in the show, I was liking it. I was like, okay, so this is, a pretty good show. I can see the appeal. But not really just, edge of my seat excitement yet. I was kind of expecting to have more of a reaction. And then round 3 happened.
Oh, yeah.
So then Joe Moravsky versus JoJo Bynum starts. Joe misses the first swing and JoJo pulls ahead. And then they're just racing on the pole grasper. And JoJo's the first one off of it, and he misses his first attempt at the wall, and that's when I'm just losing it.
It was such great to watch, man. But how do you feel about JoJo? I really feel like JoJo Bynum, more than anybody else, was the breakout star of the show. We talked about when previewing the show that there's going to be a lot of lesser known competitors where we know them and everything, but we just don't put them on par with a lot of the top notch athletes. And JoJo Bynum really, really shocked me. Of course we know him. Of course we know how good he is to a certain point, but I really never put him, and maybe it's to my own fault, I never put him on par with Joe Moravsky or any of the other really higher echelon athletes. And man, did he really impress me on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been trying to figure out what it is. Why did this show that? I feel like JoJo and Nicholas Coolidge both stood out as being amazing for being able to keep up with these guys, right? Just doing an incredible job. And I don't know, this course is certainly harder than anything I could do, but at the same time, it is kind of easier, I guess, than the regular course, right? It's designed for them to race on and for them to complete it.
Yeah, it lacks the trickier obstacles, like the Hourglass Drop, Cannonball Alley, a lot of those. But when you just pair them against these top-notch athletes that you hold with such high esteem, man, it's really cool to see. That's all I could say. Like, for instance, Nicholas Coolidge and JoJo Bynum, I'm really going to be looking at them with different eyes when American Ninja Warrior comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this show is going to do wonders for improving the recognition for some of these other athletes. So back to the actual run. So JoJo goes up, misses his first attempt. Joe Moravsky comes along, misses his first. Then JoJo misses his second, and Joe makes it up the wall in his second attempt. And Joe collapses, and I think it was Matt that said, he's never been pushed like that. And then you realize the truth of it. He's never had to worry like that about his spot.
Yeah. I mean, they were going at such a breakneck speed. They never had a chance to stop and catch their breath. They were going all out. I mean, very rare. Like, I don't think they even paused to take a breath to run any obstacle until they stopped for the warped wall. Before that, they were just running straight into each obstacle. And it really had an impact when they hit the warped wall of just the sheer exhaustion that they both had. And that's one thing that I really, really liked, is that this show really adds into the difficulty of the warped wall. These past few seasons, the warped wall has kind of just been a middle ground obstacle, whereas earlier seasons, it was such a dauntingly difficult obstacle. And man, just with the exhaustion and everything, it really had an impact.
Yeah, I totally agree. The warped wall suddenly, I was actually almost disappointed when I realized that was going to be the ending for it. I thought, well, it's not as much of an obstacle as it once was. But it is when you're exhausted and you're racing against somebody else and you have to decide whether to take a breath or not and give them a chance to run past you. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it later, but literally 1 single second of taking a breath before the warped wall can mean winning or losing.
Yeah, and then by that same token, not taking that breath and missing it is just as disastrous.
Perfect point, man.
So then we moved on to the second matchup. So obviously with that, the Storm team beat out the Average Jo Jos, and then we get to see G-Force versus Team TNT. I learned something. How did we go through this and not realize that Jessie was the only female team captain? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until they highlighted it on the show. And, it's really warranted because Jessie Graff is such a superior female athlete on the show. But there's so many other talented female competitors of this show where I figured there would be just another one. But when going through the list, a lot of the higher echelon female athletes, they're paired with a lot higher formidable male athletes as well. And of course, Team G-Force, Jessie Graff's partners, they were really great athletes, but they didn't have the same name recognition that Jessie Graff has.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we jumped into that, we had round 1. It was Adam Arnold, the walk-on warrior, versus Travis Brewer. So right off the bat, there was a bad swing by Travis. He started to fall behind. And then Adam falls on the dancing stones he had a lead and he fell. And then Travis just has to complete the dancing stones to get the point, and he almost fell. I panicked a little at that point, but he did make it across, and they got the point.
Yeah, one thing I got to say about this, though. In the preview, we said that recklessness can either work to your benefit or it can very, very much hinder you. And this particular run really highlighted that point. Travis Brewer, he's always had a knack for running a little, really fast, but a little reckless in transitioning from obstacle to obstacle. And this first run that he did, he really, really ran it very recklessly, where I was really worried. Every single time he hit an obstacle, whether it was a grip, the log grip, or the rope swing, any of them, he never takes a chance to position his body perfectly to tackle this obstacle with precision. He just runs fully into it. Like, for instance, the log grip. He doesn't wrap his legs around it. He actually runs up, wraps his arms around it, and while he's wrapping his arms around it, it's already going forward. And only after it's halfway through the first transition of sliding down does he wrap his legs around it. That could have costed him very dearly. Obviously, he was able to tough it out, but that kind of risk it can either do immense gains for you, or it can really cause some problems for you. Luckily for him, Adam Arnold, he did fail on the dancing stones, and that obstacle is just brutal, man. I don't know how you feel about it, but I was really happy to see one of these transition obstacles really, really take out a lot of these competitors.
Yeah, one thing that we found was the people that did dip into the water, which was allowed, which I was actually pretty happy. I like that change. They could have some incidental contact with the water, but if they got their feet wet, the dancing stones were suddenly like way harder.
Oh, yeah. And that's a good point. I really like the placement as well, that the dancing stones were after the rope swing, where a lot of competitors did hit the water. And yeah, I didn't even realize that until now. Man, if my shoes are slippery and I hit those stones on one of the sides, there's no way you can transition out of it, or at least myself.
Yeah, so and just as a reminder to everyone that maybe didn't pay attention or didn't realize, so G-Force is the team that I picked to win the whole thing. So I'm like losing at this point. I was like 1 point. All right, that's one. And we just need a second one. And it's Jessie Graff up next versus Joyce Shabazz. And I had every confidence in Jessie, and she didn't let me down. She took the lead by the time they get the log grip. But Joyce got hung, was actually doing pretty well. Then she got hung up on the swing jump. And then Jessie just destroyed the pole grasper. Joyce almost falls in the water, but she managed to save it. And then Jessie goes up the warped wall and hits the buzzer. Like, just even watching her do the warped wall, it's just awesome. Just love watching it every time. So there we are, 2 points. I'm like, all right, so the game's on. Yeah. This is going exactly as I thought it would.
Yeah, quick note. It's always great to see Jessie Graff run, because you can see just how higher of an athlete she is. Joyce Shabazz is a really great athlete. She'll do great against any other person, but Jessie Graff is just on a whole nother level in a certain way in terms of hitting these obstacles and just in terms of overall athleticism. I mean, you just look at her build and you're like, whoa, dude, like she's a full-on athlete. And yeah, I gotta give a shout out to Joyce Shabazz showing some great heart on the rope swing. She never gave up, which was really cool to see. I really like it when, even though you're losing, you're still sticking in there. You never give up. It showed a lot of great heart. So good for her. But Jessie Graff, she just ran a perfect run. And yeah, it's hard to compete against somebody like Jessie Graff.
Yeah, thanks for stressing that, because that was actually the point the reason I'd taken that note was to give Joyce a shout out for not giving up, because I thought she had lost it, but she pulled her back it together and she managed to stay on there somehow, even though she got pretty wet in the process. I thought she did pretty well. So then moving on to round 3, we had Travis Rose and Nicholas Coolidge, and this is where I kind of, when I was considering the team, I hadn't considered how the matchups were going to work, that Nicholas was going to be forced to go against the team captains, basically the strongest competitors in the whole league. And as strong as Nicholas was, I was like, oh boy, him versus Travis, this might not go so well. But oh my God, like, it was fantastic. He does like his leap off the dancing stones, just killing it. He was first to the wall, and he got his fingers on the lip of the warped wall twice.
Yeah,
but he didn't make it up, and Travis makes it, and he so that tied them up. God, I was so frustrated. I was like, his fingers were right there, and they would have won that round, and they would have faced the Average Jo Jos in round 2.
Yeah, it's that whole taking the risk, Nicholas Coolidge was so damn impressive, man. I mean, he was another guy where I'm like, all right, he'll do well, but, whatever. Holy crap, did he shock me. He went so fast. And, he was a little reckless, but this was somebody where he actually did do it with somewhat of precision. When he hit an obstacle, even though he transitioned straight into it, he was able to secure his body and everything while doing it. So it wasn't ever like he was in too much trouble of kind of losing himself. And yeah, this show is just so exciting because, yeah, just watching somebody go at that speed, it was so fun to watch. And I felt for you, man, when he he just got his fingertips but couldn't pull himself up. I think really the big key in it was Travis Rosen took a second to take a deep breath and catch himself, whereas, Nicholas Coleridge didn't, and he was just running straight into it, and I think he just blew his lungs out a little too much.
Yep, and that would be important later. I really feel like that's worth noting now. So he didn't stop to take a breath, so he didn't make it up the warp wall. So we'll come back to that. So then we moved into the tiebreaker round. Because the team captains of round 3, whatever you want to call it, that round is worth 2 points. That meant that they were now tied, and they had to do the tiebreaker round, and they could choose anybody they wanted to run it. So it ended up being Adam Arnold versus Travis Brewer.
How'd you feel about them choosing Travis Brewer?
I was okay with it.
Yeah, I felt like they chose it just simply because they matched up before, and Adam Arnold, he did lose to Travis Brewer, but I felt like with such a great run from Nicholas Coleridge, it would have been better or more beneficial to them to choose Coleridge. But it's hindsight 2020, and I think Brewer held his own in this particular matchup.
Yeah. So that's the thing, as I'm trying not to use the benefit of hindsight. So yeah, I don't know. It seemed okay.
I'll just say this. Brewer, he up until he hit the Dancing Stones, he did show a lot more maturity in his run, where he was more cautious in terms of he secured his body when he hit these obstacles at the beginning of them, rather than before when he was just reckless and running into it. So even though he won the round when he was more reckless, and he lost the round when he wasn't, it did show a little bit more maturity in terms of overall hitting them correctly, in my opinion. It was just a simple slip up, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that meant, and here's actually the reason, if I was going to question it, and it may not have been something that they realized, that because he lost, he had to run again right away, because he was then in round 1 in the third matchup. Because they lost, they had to face the Storm Team Moravsky.
That's killer, dude. I mean, it's one thing to be exhausted in terms of endurance, but it's another thing. You have to realize how much of a toll it takes in terms of on your muscles doing these obstacles. And for him to run back to back, and this would be his third run, and he just ran the run before it. So his arms, legs, everything must be exhausted. Sorry. And I really feel for the guy. Whew, that's a tough order to take, but yeah, at least he was. Well, I don't want to harp too much on Rob Moravsky, but at least he was running against somebody that was lower in terms of skill than a lot of the other athletes.
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair to Rob, I thought he had a really good run this time. So Travis missed his swing jump the first time, but they did manage to catch up. Travis was really fast. Especially when it came to getting up from like the cargo net and racing up to the next obstacle, he was really seemed to pull away from people at that point. So his transitioning was really quick compared to a lot of the other competitors, and it became like a pole grasper race. Basically, they both ended up on there, and then Travis moves in front of Rob to block him. I thought that was pretty genius.
Oh, I loved it. That won it for me, where I was like, I screamed. I was so damn happy. I was like, yes, Brewer, you do it, man. I was, as everybody knows that listen to the podcast, I was hoping for stuff like this where you just block the person. It's like, screw you, dude. I got to do what I got to do. And it was great. And I feel for Rob Moravsky because, that type of obstacle is going to benefit somebody that's smaller and lighter over somebody that, I don't know how tall Rob Moravsky is, but I'm pretty sure he's over 6 foot. And, it's got to be hard on the guy.
Yeah, they said he slimmed out. I thought he seemed a little smaller. He lost like 15 pounds between the seasons, so he did seem a little leaner than before.
Yeah, but, he's going against a guy that is shorter than most guys on this show. Obviously, Brewer's buff or really in shape, but he's smaller. So in terms of physical toll, I'd imagine hanging on something isn't as hard for him.
Yeah, so he ended up going up the wall and got the point for G-Force. So again, looking pretty good. They move on to round 2, and it's Jessie Graff versus Mary Beth Wong. Now, I knew Mary Beth was strong, so I was like, okay, well, my money's still on Jessie. I know she's good. And Jessie pulled ahead on the Dancing Stones. I mean, Mary Beth stayed with her pretty well. But Jessie goes up the wall first. They noted, now when they said this, I don't know if they meant for the whole day or just up to this point, but Jessie got through the pole grasper faster than anyone, man or woman.
Makes sense, man. She, when looking at her build, you'd imagine she's really good at holding her body weight, and she's very slim in her lower body, but very muscular, or I should say toned, not muscular, but toned in her upper body, probably due to, I'd imagine she trains with a lot of gymnastics and upper body intensive obstacles, and yeah, this particular obstacle is just made for her. She flew through it, and I don't know if you know this or know the answer to this, but I wonder if women are allowed to compete against men during the tiebreaker round, because it would be so interesting to see Jessie Graff compete against one of the men on this show and see how well she does. I feel like she's such a strong component of the team. With that said, I still think Courage is the fastest on her team, but it would be great to see her compete against one of the males on one of the opposing teams. Yeah, I don't know what the rules for that were. Maybe, like you said, in the in that final round, I guess, when they get to pick anybody. Yeah, I don't know. It would be a weird trade-off. I mean, because Jessie could compete with a lot of them, I feel, but certainly not. I wouldn't put her up against Joe Morawski or no, I wouldn't.
But yeah, I think she could hold her own against a lot of the round 1 people, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jessian's winning that point, so that ends up being 2-0 for G-Force, leading into the round 3 again. And this time, Nicholas Coleridge, poor guy, I feel like he got the short end here. But then, I don't know, look at the other captains. Are you really going to come out ahead here? I mean, but he has to face Joe Morawski this time. He was Travis Rosen the first time. Now he's up against Joe Morawski.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason he's such a breakout star for me, even though he lost against both these guys, is just he held his own so well against them, right?
Yeah, I mean, beyond holding oh my God. So we start this thing, and they're pretty neck and neck, and Nicholas skips over the stones. He does this crazy jump roll thing off of the stones, forcing Joe to jump halfway across the pole grasper, and that's when I lost my mind and nearly, I upset the whole household. I was yelling so loud.
Dude, it was so impressive. This is the cool stuff, is that you see these insane physical gifts and feats that these guys do that typically I'd imagine they just wouldn't do, because it's it's important to err on the side of caution usually, but when somebody is so much more ahead of you, you gotta just be like, screw it, man, I gotta do something. And wow, did they really show some really cool stuff here.
And then this is why I mentioned earlier about Nicholas taking a second, because that's all it happened here. He gets to the warped wall first, and I'm losing my mind. Oh my God, he's going to beat Joe Morawski. But he just pauses long enough to catch his breath for a second, and Joe just runs up the wall and hits the buzzer. And I was so angry. He can't win. Yeah. If he runs up too fast, he hits the lip and doesn't quite make it. If he pauses for half a second, Joe's blows by him and makes it up the wall.
Can you just imagine what was going through his mind at that point? He just took 1 second to pause and rest, and that's all it took. While he was running it, I'm pretty sure he's like, what the hell, dude? Because, yeah, Joe, he had to do what he had to do. He just ran up it, and Joe's the type of person I'd imagine that doesn't get winded all that easily. as we showed with his breakdown, he's so much errors in terms of precision and technique. And when you use so much technique, it doesn't wind you as much. And yeah, man, he ran a flawless run. Honestly, both of them ran flawless runs. It's just one person was a little bit better, literally a second better than the other.
Yeah. So then we have the tie-breaking round, and I was so excited that they had Joe go against Nicholas again, like right after, just an instant rematch. And I thought, okay.
Rematch, man.
Okay, here we go. Nicholas can do it this time. We got it. This is going to happen. Yeah, Joe took an early lead, but he needed a second swing on the swing jump. So then they were neck and neck on the pole grasper. And Nicholas, he pulled ahead of him there. Like, I don't know what happened, but Nicholas got ahead of him. But he fell. He was like right at the end of it. And he just, like, he needed to be like an inch more onto the mat and he would have made it. But he ends up falling into the water.
Oh, man. And he had it too. I mean, he was going fast, and yeah, he did great. I think it was just one small little slip up. Taking those risks, they can do a lot for you. And I think he just failed at this particular risk that he made. It worked out for him before, but, with the dancing stones making that giant leap, but it just didn't work out for him with the poles.
Yeah, it's brutal. I feel like I feel like they were robbed. I feel like I want to see this all again. I guess we'll have to have a second season because I feel like they could totally do it. Yeah, kind of sucks. My team's out of the first. But really, 3 out of every 4, there's like only a 1 in 4 chance of your team moving on almost.
Yeah, true. And we're definitely going to see another season of this. I can already tell this show is like just so great. I can't imagine people not watching this show and it getting buzz. But it was unfortunate seeing such a strong team eliminated so early. But honestly, all of these teams are so strong. It just sucks that some have to go, but that's just how the show is. But man, could you imagine if you saw like Jesse Graff versus Casey Catanzaro or Megan Martin, man? Oh, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think they need to eliminate this whole, 8-episode arc. It should be like a regular sport team where you could watch them every week compete against different people and just basically run it for a whole season.
Dude, that's a thought, man. Like rather than eliminations, you just go with points. It's definitely a way to do it.
Yeah, win-loss record. Have a big Super Bowl type thing at the end. I think it's great. All right. So moving on, we had the fourth matchup. That's Team TNT versus the Average Jo Jos. And our one fast-forwarded run of the night. So the one they didn't really show was Joyce Shabazz versus Caitlin Shuckwit. Because Joyce fell on the swing jump and Caitlin fell right after her. So sucks. Joyce got the point for it, but they were both out early on in the course.
Yeah, not much to say there.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because if Caitlin, if Shucks had held on and completed the swing jump, they would have got the point, but... Moving on, round 2 was Adam Arnold versus Jimmy Bogle Jr. So Adam pulls ahead pretty early on, but Jimmy caught up. Adam was the first to the pole grasper, and then Jimmy rushed, and he jumped, and he was just trying to take it too far, kind of doing like the Joe Morosky, try to skip a bunch of poles to catch up, but he ended up getting too low on the pole grasper and fell in.
Yeah. Oh my God, he slipped so far down. There's no way. Once you kind of lose your footing on a pole, it's really hard to boost yourself up just from your arm strength. Plus, with the gravity pulling you down. I mean, once he lost his footing, it was over.
Yeah, when he first caught it, I thought, "Oh my God, is he going to manage to pull himself back up from down there?" But it didn't end up happening. So then we moved on to round 3. That's Travis Rosen versus JoJo Bynum. They were very close. Man, JoJo was so impressive this episode.
He's so good. He really, really surprised me. He really did so great. I mean, at the end of the day, he was just competing against somebody that ran a perfect run, in terms of this round. But boy, did he hold his own, man. I really think we're going to see some really great stuff from him in the future. Yeah,
so Travis, got slightly ahead when they got to the pole grasper, and then he just kind of pulled away a bit because Travis is really good at that kind of stuff, and he just went up the wall just a little bit faster.
Yeah, I mean, Travis is an Olympic level gymnast. I mean, when it comes to these upper body type of obstacles, you're not going to find many people that are better than Travis Rosen. You really aren't. I mean, honestly, I think Travis Rosen is probably the best equipped for stage 4. Him and I guess Jeff Britton, but Travis Rosen is so far up there in terms of sheer athleticism and upper body. And I gotta give a shout out to both of them for their age and just the level of athleticism they have. They're just both so good. And yeah, they both ran perfect runs. It's just Travis Rosen ran a little bit better perfect run.
Yeah, so that moved us on to the finals, which the finals are a little bit different than the earlier matchups. For those that saw the show know this already, but they basically split the first half of the course in two, and two people race that part, and then it carries on from the top of the warped wall into dueling salmon ladders, the tilting ladders, and a 40-foot tower climb, which is basically a half spider climb, half rope climb.
Love it. Anybody that's a fan of Sasuke knows what that last obstacle is, and it is so awesome to see it on Team Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, the only thing that confused me about it a bit is, I don't know which one's faster. Is it faster to do a spider climb? Do you have to use the rope?
Yeah, you have to hit the rope. What's interesting is they didn't really have a cutoff point in terms of, that, but you have to, or at least this is how it is on Sasuke. I don't know particularly the rules of this one, but I'd imagine it has to be the same, where you hit the spider climb and you can't pass the part where your feet meets the rope. You have to climb the rope from there.
Okay, so there's some kind of, there must be some kind of marks there. Your feet can't touch past this point kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so this is, I think, where when we talked to Noah Kaufman and he mentioned about strategy, now I can kind of see what he means. So figuring out who to put where for this type of run. Now they both chose to put the women as the first leg of the race. I would think that's going to be pretty typical. When you look at the obstacles, the warped wall is notoriously difficult for the women, and if it's fairly static on the second half, that's all upper body, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to be that way. I mean, or it doesn't have to be that way, but I imagine most of the teams are going to choose it to run that way. However, one thing I noticed is that every single episode is going to have a somewhat slightly different terms of course. So maybe the course will be a little bit more diversified later on. I don't know if the warped wall is always going to be the latter part of the course. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm just curious to see if, as I said before, if you can switch it up, having a woman compete against a man, if you particularly want your female athlete on your team to run maybe the second part of the relay or the third part of the relay. I mean, you'd have to imagine if Jessie Grass' team was here, maybe she'd want to compete against Travis Rosen or Joe Moravsky at the later part of the stage, or maybe do the second part. You'd have to imagine that she wouldn't want to just waste her talents on the first part of this particular course. So we'll see how it pans out later on in the season.
Yeah. I can't think of too many other women that would be doing the other halves, but yeah, for Jessie, it would have made sense actually for her to be the second leg, maybe, because she could do the pole grasper probably faster than Travis. But depends.
Oh yeah, I mean the second part of the stage is tailor made for Jessie Grass, so I guess we won't see until next season, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. And as far as switching out the obstacles, my understanding, I'm not 100% on this, is that the would be the fifth obstacle where the pole grasper will be swapped out from episode to episode. I think that's the only one that's going to change.
Really?
Yeah, I could definitely be wrong on that, but that's what my understanding is.
Well, I mean, at least there's one switch up, but I really hope that we see more diversity in terms of the stages or in terms of the courses. But I guess we'll find out next week, man.
Yeah, I should say that I think that's what it is for the first eliminate. So like the first, 4 episodes? Mm-hmm. How long is it going to take? 6 episodes to get it weeded down to the finals. Yeah. And so then the finals, I'm sure, will be different, and we'll have something different there. But in the meantime, so back to the episode, we've got we had pairing off in leg 1, Mary Beth Wong versus Joyce Shabazz. Now, Mary Beth got slightly ahead by the log grip, but Joyce made up the time. She made it to the swing jump. She had failed it twice earlier, but she made it. She got her redemption, and she looked really happy about it when they interviewed her afterwards.
Hey, I'd be happy too, right?
Yeah, I felt really good for her to be able to get that, because it wasn't clear to me how the time penalty works. What happens if she falls in? What if she, how does that, do they just fail? Do they lose? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm still curious about that, but I'm sure we'll get an answer to that relatively soon.
Yeah, I think they would tailor pick that first episode to be one of the clear-cut ones, just so that everybody kind of gets the hang of it, and then we'll have some more complicated ones come later.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, this particular last race against these two teams, I mean, it's definitely a highlight reel, run against Joe Moravsky and Travis Rosen. I mean, we'll get to that later, but I think that's one of the highlights of the season.
Yeah, they use it right in the promos, right? So leg 2, Adam Arnold versus Rob Moravsky. Adam made a big jump to catch up on the pole grasper. Basically, it was a virtual tie when they tagged in the captains, and that was so exciting. Just watching them race down. Oh my God.
Oh, I loved it. And Arnold was so impressive, man. I mean, shout out to Rob Moravsky. He held his own, but holy crap, did Adam Arnold catch up for his team. He was so good. Yeah,
Rob, I mean, I was really impressed. I kind of wondered if he would struggle on the warp wall. He didn't hesitate. He was up there. It was good. So then we get Travis versus Joe. They're both skipping rungs on the salmon ladder, and they're just tied when they entered the tower climb. And I knew Travis was strong, and I knew he was good at rope climbing, but I thought Joe would power through faster, but no. Travis.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I really thought Joe had him.
No, man. I mean, as soon as they're running up, I'm like, oh, Rosen has this, dude. Yeah, obviously they're so talented, but Rosen, I think for me, it really hit me how good Rosen is when it comes to this final stage, terms of upper body stuff. When you saw him against, what was it? I think it was USA versus the World, one of the specials where they chose him to compete against the other team, and he just blew through it, man.
Yeah, he was the first person I ever saw do the, Stage 4. Yeah, it was really cool.
Oh, he's so good.
He did, but he ended up losing, right? He lost to Sean McCall, I think his name is.
Yeah. But, McCall, he's so good.
Yeah, McCall's a climber.
I wish we saw it. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's due to Travis Rosen's background in terms of gymnastics. I mean, this dude was... They're both so good, but I think... Rosen is an expert for this particular set of obstacles, whereas Moravsky is really, really talented in these obstacles. But, at the end of the day, it's literally milliseconds in terms of, closeness.
Yeah, well, it was pretty close. Travis did pull ahead. It wasn't quite a photo finish. Travis beat him pretty solidly.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, really exciting first episode. Couldn't ask for more. It was back and forth, all kinds of excitement. Basically everything they promised it would be.
Yeah, I loved it, man. Overall, I'm really excited about the show. It really lived up to the hype. I really love the dynamic of them not only racing against each other, but there's this aspect of even if a person's flying ahead of the other person, and we saw it on the show, that doesn't necessarily mean the person that's behind is going to lose. I mean, one small slip up and it's over for the person in front. But not just that, it also adds a dimension of people having to take risks. And whether that's recklessness or just making a huge leap of a risk, it really adds a lot of, really fun highlights from the show that you're not going to see very much on American Ninja Warrior because people are going to aid more on the side of caution. So I really, really loved it.
Okay, so that concludes our first week's review of Team Ninja Warrior, and very excited to see the rest of them. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. So we're going to continue on with our coverage of the National Ninja League once we have a word from our sponsor. This week, I felt it was time that we address a serious issue facing our community. For too long, we have sat idly by as Atomic Climbing Holds desecrates the sanctity of spelling with their flagrant use of the letter K in the word atomic. Atomic is spelt with a C, and it always has been. They can't just make up spellings for words and expect everyone to just change. I've looked it up in multiple dictionaries, and they all agree. Atomic is spelled with a C on the end. A-T-O-M-I-C. It was good enough for Webster's dictionary, Atomic, so why isn't it good enough for you? Do you think you're better than Webster just because you can pour affordable, top-of-the-line climbing holds? Well, I'm sure Mr. Webster could have too if he was so inclined. In spite of this abomination, I do encourage you to check out their products. If you want to avoid typing in misspelled words and having Google correct you, no Google, I actually did mean to spell it with a K. Just go to ninjapodcast.com and click on their banner. If you enter the discount code of podcast, you can save 10% off your purchase. Okay, and we're back, and we're talking about the National Ninja League, the video put out by Chris Wilczewski, and it was for the Brooklyn Zoo, and he kind of did it as a speed round, he called it this time. He really kind of raced through the updates, and so it was a little easier to get the notes on, but I think the general consensus seems to be in the YouTube comments that everybody preferred the longer format because he asked for opinions, and yeah, I kind of like the longer approach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got, so he went through the men first this time. Usually he does the women first. I'm just going to look at the top three here. So in third place, we had Jamie Ron. He was just trying to transfer on this unstable bridge obstacle and ended up going out. It said he was he's running low on time. He was pretty taxed by that point, and he just dropped.
I mean, who can blame him? This course was brutal, man. Oh my God. I was watching this. I was cringing. Oh, you can just imagine the pain they're in. In this particular unstable bridge, it wasn't a small gap between the two bridges like you traditionally see on the show. There was a really big gap. I don't know if it was a foot or 2 feet, but it was a very, very big gap that they had to transition from. And you have to imagine it caused a lot of issues for a lot of the competitors.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It seemed to, because second place was Noel Reyes, who also went out on the unstable bridge. His sideways swing was something new, which I think seemed to work really well. Actually, he basically got on it sideways and used that to gain some momentum to get across to the second bridge.
Loved it, man. It was really smart, and I really enjoyed watching that. You know, he cut off a lot of in terms of the size of the gap, he really made a big impact in getting a really big swing, doing that sideways swing, and then transitioning to the bridge. So it was really smart on his part.
Yeah, and then moved on to our first place finisher was Jeffrey Tan. And he had this awkward swing on the unstable bridge, but he got there faster, and he ended up going out there as well. So, yeah, pretty brutal course, and they all the top three all ended up tripped up in the same spot.
Yeah, I mean, who can blame them? Even though we covered just like 2 parts of the course, I mean, this course was heavily, heavily upper body focused, and you have to imagine at that point your arms are completely gassed.
Yep, so moving on to the women's runs, we had in third place Alyssa Beard, who made, so there was like a rope obstacle near the first, which was really tripping up some of the women, because it seemed like the wall was wet or something, like it was really slippery. But Alyssa managed to make it through that, and then end up going out on this rolling spool-like obstacle they had to balance on and walk on. So trying to jump over to the mat, she just didn't quite make it.
Mm-hmm. It was a really cool obstacle, though. I really liked it. It was similar to anybody that plays video games, you know, where they have to just swing on a rope side to side. It was similar to that to do a transition, and the only thing you have is this wall, and there's this bar underneath you where mentally you just want to put your foot on that to kind of balance yourself. But if you touch it, you're out. So I really liked how they implemented this particular obstacle. It looked very difficult, but I always love seeing creative obstacles like this, man.
Yeah, that rope obstacle was pretty neat. And if they could have got grip with their feet, I think it would have been it seemed a little unfair almost that their feet were so slick. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So then Maura Sherman ended up getting second place, and she made it all the way to this pegboard that looked brutal, but she did pretty well on it before she ended up dropping. But I'm kind of curious. I wish we could see the whole course sometimes to get an idea of all that had to be done to get there. But yeah, good on her.
Yeah, I've actually done a pegboard like that before, and that is so insanely difficult. And props to her for getting that far. Oh my God, is that hard? And I really wished I could have seen a lot more of the men tackle this course, like the full runs, seeing them hit a lot of these obstacles, because I think we would have gotten a better understanding of how taxed they were in terms of their upper body when they hit the particular obstacle, that the bridges, the bridge gap that we saw them fail at. For instance, there was this really, really cool obstacle where it was kind of like I think it's the roulette, like the spinning thing, but it's a form of spinning ultimate cliffhanger. So it's kind of like you hit a cliffhanger, a small part of it, and then the whole obstacle turns in an axis, and you kind of have to just hit another one that's a little bit elevated, and it'll swing in place. And it looked very, very creative and difficult in terms of taxing your body in a different way and holding yourself up. And I really, really like these different takes in particular obstacles.
Yeah, actually, that's where the first place woman, Jessie Lebrec, ended up going out. Was on. They called it the roulette cliffhanger. So you pretty much nailed it. Yeah. So she did better than most of the guys. She's now first overall for the National Ninja League, and we keep seeing these names. It's so cool. Like this Jessie Lebrec, I love to see her on next season's American Ninja Warrior. See how she does. She seems to be just killing it.
Yeah, man. She's really good, and I think she's going to do really well in American Ninja Warrior. Like, in terms of her skill, her build, and everything, she definitely knows what she's doing when she's hitting these obstacles. So, yeah, let's hope to see her, man.
All right, so moving on, we've got our video of the week. So this week we chose an ANW8 submission for Spencer Johnson. He was a gymnast for 17 years, trained for the Olympics, but in 2012 he stopped. He kind of made it really high in the sport, but I guess he just kind of didn't quite make it all the way. So what did you think of this video overall, Bijan?
Loved it, man. First of all, shout out to the great music choice. He didn't have this cliched music that we always hear with all these videos. He actually had a really creative music choice. And he showed an adorable daughter in the video, so he's got family ties for the show. He's very personable, very charismatic, very well spoken, and he's doing incredible physical feats in his show. So he's highlighting himself all around. Thumbs up. I really hope to see him. He was doing some really, really cool obstacles. I don't know which gym he trains at, but the gym's obstacles that he was working on were really, really cool looking. And yeah, he implemented really cool gymnastics techniques in his video, but he was also showing that he's well astute with a lot of the obstacles. He did a lache from one particular bar with a giant gap in terms of the swing from the lache to a cannonball, which, as anybody has seen it, cannonball is very, very difficult. And anybody that's tried to grip one of those cannonballs, it's very difficult. So big props to him. He is very, very talented, and he is just tailor-made for this show, man. I mean, as we've seen with Travis Rosen and a lot of the other people, gymnasts do really, really well on this show. And we're talking about a gymnast that is in one of his physical primes. He's very, very high level. He was an Olympic athlete or, Olympic alternate. And he also trains on these obstacles. So I really, really think he's going to do very good on the show.
Yeah, incredibly impressive. Just these really long leaps to, every type of obstacle grip that you can imagine, right? Whether it was a pole, nunchucks, cannonballs. Like it's almost like he had resined his hands before he was jumping these things. Like, how was he able to grab some of this?
Yeah, I mean, he did a giant springboard from a trampoline front flip, and then he lands gripping onto a bar. I mean, this dude is just insane. He did a quintuple step straight into a warped wall with no like breakneck speed up. I mean, he literally lands from the quintuple steps halfway on the warped wall. So it's like, this guy is very, very high. He's a very high level athlete.
Yep, my only beef with the video is I near had a heart attack when he does a flip on a trampoline holding his daughter. That was just about, oh my God, what was he thinking? Like, don't do that.
Well, you're the father here. I'm sure it hit you harder for you. But yeah, that raised my eyebrow. But I'm pretty sure a guy like him, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure he's fine. But yeah, good luck to you, Spencer. Really enjoyed the video. We've with the deadline was January 17th, so all the submission videos are just hitting YouTube like crazy now. So there's so many videos to go through, but Spencer's really stood out. It was a pretty easy choice once we found it.
Yeah, I think in the notes for uploading the videos, they say don't upload your video to social media before we look at it. So I think now that the cutoff date has hit a lot, you're going to see a lot more videos pop up. And I think you're going to see a whole lot more videos in terms of submission videos pop up once the show is on. But yeah, this will be during this time. It's going to be really fun watching a lot of these people's submission videos.
Yeah. So moving on, we have our fan of the week. Now, we're going to actually suspend the fan of the week for a while. We originally started to give some shout out to fans when we when they, kind of went above and beyond, and we really do appreciate hearing from you. But it's starting to feel like we're kind of looking for reasons, and I don't want to get into that. We still have engagement from some of our really cool fans that have previously been on our fans of the week. So, Bobby Gillis, Cameron Aaron, Ethan Voce, Arsenet, all, still reach out to us consistently. I would love hearing from you guys. Please keep it up. But I just don't want to keep giving out to competitors, because that's who keeps doing it right now. Joyce Shabazz shared us out last week, and it was really great that she did, and she, gave us some additional information. But it just seems silly to keep going back and giving the competitors. It's really more about the fans of our podcast, and I just don't want to keep doing that. So,
yeah, you don't want it to become a mundane of being like, hey, this person shouted us out even because they're on the show. We give it to them. It's really not about that, as you said. And any of the, genuine fan, like diehard fans that are with us from day one and everything, we're definitely going to shout you out if you reach out to us. You're definitely the people that really make us do this every week, and we really, really appreciate it. So still send that feedback, send all the feedback and love. We really love seeing that kind of stuff. And yeah, we still appreciate you so much.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. So if you do want to give us a shout, you can just reach us on our website. That's ninjapodcast.com. You can email us at rich@ninjapodcast.com, or on Twitter you can reach us, and that's at ninjapodcast. So
you can find us on Facebook too.
And we are on Facebook too. Absolutely. Not sure how I forgot that. All right. So thank you once again for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Take care, everybody. See you next week.
A special thanks to Kathleen Martin for the song Player v Player Remastered from Bandcamp.com.
Thank you all for listening, and have a lovely day.